Hello friend, welcome back to my channel KBS Technocraft. Today in this video we are going to understand how to manage the state and data sharing in SpecFlow. So state and data sharing is very important when you are writing a automation test cases or BDD test cases. So let's understand what is the state and data sharing. State sharing is a crucial for maintaining the context and flow of SpecFlow scenario. For example, if you are having some data to be passed from one step to other step, then we should have some state management technique over there, right? For data sharing technique, so that from one step to other step, we can share the data, right? So what does it allow? It allow for passing the data between different steps, ensuring continuity and accuracy in the test automation, right? It happens that in one of the step you are reading some data, and then in other step you are verifying the data. So if you are not able to maintain those state or share the data between multiple steps, then you will not able to complete your test cases, because you will have to have the data shared among the multiple steps. Let's understand in more detail what is the state sharing. So what does it enable? State sharing enables scenario to interact with each other and simulate real world user journey effectively. So let's say consider you are having a login screen, and after the login you have some user specific detail. Then that detail you want to pass it from the login step to verification step, or in any other steps which is mentioned in that particular scenarios where you need that user details to be verified. Without proper state sharing, scenario may become a disjointed, leading a inaccurate test result and inefficient test maintenance. Scenario context is a built-in feature. So what does it SpecFlow had to offer for this? So basically, SpecFlow offers few mechanism. One is inbuilt scenario. So in inbuilt scenario, you can see that scenario context. So what has happened when a scenario runs? Scenario context is a available state management techniques where during the scenario execution, all the information you can store in the scenario context, and you can retrieve the data from scenario context. It allows data to be stored one step and access in subsequent step, facilitated seamless communication between steps. So how to use scenario context? Data can be stored context using scenario context dot current property. When a step completes, data stored in scenario context remains available for the duration for the scenario. And then when you move your execution move to the next step, the scenario context maintain the data and it can be used. Data stored in scenario context can be retrieved using key or identifier assigned during the storage. So in the scenario context, you can store a string or you can store a complex object. When we say complex object, you might have a user information where you have a multiple field. So you can define your own collection, or you can define your own class which you can store it. This enable a step to access the utilizing shared data as needed throughout the scenario execution. So we will create some example and we will discuss in more detail. Let's go with the theory first, and then we will go with the practical. Now, there are few advanced techniques are available for state sharing. One which is very much popular, which is called dependency injection. So what does dependency injection contains? So you have to inject your dependencies in the step definition file. Step definition is a class. So you in the constructor you will inject your dependencies, and that dependencies might be scenario context, IWeb driver, or many more. So once you inject it, it will be available. The data which is stored in the injected properties will be available throughout the scenario execution. So context injection, so there is a context injection. So context injection involves injecting custom context object containing shared data into step definition, enhance readability and maintainability. In example, we will demonstrate how to implement dependency injection and context injection in SpecFlow. I'm going to open Visual Studio and we will create a simple applications here. So I will continue without code, or let's say consider we will select a project template and then I have selected a SpecFlow project template and then I will create new and then I will keep this SpecFlow project and then I will mention here is state or data sharing and then I will create it. I will use an unit framework as it is and then I will click on next. It will create the process. Now in this, what I'm going to do that I'm going to create a new feature file here. Let me first build it and check that application is working fine. So I just build it and I can see build is happening and then I can see the feature file is created, right? So uh, I'm going to do couple of things. First, I'm going to add a new feature file, new item, and then I'm going to create a new feature file and then I will select here SpecFlow feature file and then I'm giving navigate to wiki page, right? I will give this feature name like this and click on add and I will add some scenario here. So let's say consider we will give this feature name is Wikipedia search. I will rename this to Wikipedia search. Right, I renamed it, and then we can. So I have a feature file which contains multiple scenario. One is search for a topic, then navigate to page and verify the content. It's a very simple one, right? So I will delete this calculator. This is by default created, and then we need to add few drivers here, right? NuGet packages. So I will add, click on manage NuGet package, and then I will here, and then I will select Selenium WebDriver. So I will install it, and then I will select Selenium support. Okay, so I have installed a couple of packages. If you are using other than the Yan unit, if let's say consider if you are using X unit, then you have to install other. But I'm using Yan unit, which is already installed in my system, so I don't need to install anything. So now let's see. We will try to build it. Okay, so build successfully happened. And then what we will do, we will generate the step definition file. So what I'm going to define steps, I will click on create and I will delete the existing one. So I will delete this. So you can see all the step definition files are generated here. Now what we will do, we will add the code for step definition file using Selenium WebDriver and try to run this test cases. And then we will try to maintain the state and data sharing and we will see how does it works. So to save the time, I will just add the step definition here, right? So I have, I will paste it here. So now we have our test cases here, and then we will try to build this. Now we will run all these test cases and we'll see it's working fine or not. So I'm going on Text Explorer and then I will run all these test cases. Let's run it now. Okay, so we can see all these test cases are running and working fine, right? So let's have a quick look on the test cases and then we'll proceed on implementing the state management techniques here. So now we have three test cases. The first test case, we are what objective of this test cases in this scenario searching for a topic. So we are trying to validate that if I search a topic called SpecFlow and then after click on search, the SpecFlow topics are displayed. Now the second scenario which we are having it where we are having navigate to a page and we you have searched a SpecFlow and see that the page navigated to a SpecFlow page when you click on that search result, right? And then verifying the content. So you have some text which you want to verify. These are just simple conditions and simple scenarios which I just want to represent it with the realistic scenario. So these are very simple. Now, so what we have done it, we have added our code. This is basically a hook. So we can put this code inside the hook as well as if you can refer my previous videos where I have detail explain about the hook. So these are the hooks where we have injected this driver before scenario and after scenario. So whenever scenario start, the driver will be initialized, and whenever the after scenario happen, then the driver will be disposed. Okay, so this is all steps are defined here. Now we will see how we can use scenario context to persist the data between two steps. So we will try to use scenario context dot current, right? And then you can put any key. Let's say consider search search page, right? Let's say consider you put something, and let's say put here like SpecFlow, SpecFlow, right? So this is how you assign the value, right? And then what you can do, the variable SpecFlow value, right? So we will put it like this, and then what we can do, we can use same key and paste it here and just make it to a string so that you will be able to get that value, right? So I have this value here, right? So we can put this value in multiple steps. So let's say I am on Wikipedia homepage. So let's say that where this is. So basically this. So I search for the spec flow using this. So if you go to definition, we will try. So we are trying to persist the data between this step and this step. So we are assigning this data here and we are trying to retrieve here. So what I will do, I will put a breakpoint here and go into this and I will run only this test case. So I will go on Test Explorer and then topic related test case, I will debug it. So just to show, I will just debug it. So once I debug it, what will happen? It will go to that particular step definition file and you will be able to see. Okay, so you will be able to see this informations whatever I store here is spec flow, it will be there. So if I make it continue and if I so see this value, right? So if you see these values are spec flow. So this is one easiest way and most commonly used way of sharing the information or persisting the state from one step to other step. Now we will go next and we will try to see how we can use injection or dependency injection to persist the data. Okay, so I will break this here. To do that, what we need to do that, we need to create a constructor for this particular class, step definition for. So we will put public, right? And step definition, I just created without any constructor as of now, right? This is okay. This is what I have done it now, right? Now I will create a read-only property here. Let me delete. I will use I scenario context, and I can give any name. Let's say scenario context. I give it here, right? And then I have to declare a private read-only variable. So I will do here private read-only, and then I will declare that scenario context here, right? Just to distinguish it, I will put like this, okay? And then in the constructor, what I'm going to do, this equal to this scenario context. So this is how constructor injection works. So I just injected this here, right? Now, throughout our step, this context can help us to share the information. So for example, here, if I go here and this dot and if I put any key right here, let's say same key, if I put it here. So now I have this dot scenario context which I have injected and search page equal to SpecFlow. So now this injected value, whatever we have injected the scenario context is a display here. The issue was what I was facing here is that I earlier had injected I scenario context. Basically what we have to inject is the scenario context. So I injected scenario context and then I have a read-only variable declaration which I initialize it. Now I can use it similar way. So similar way I just set it and similar way I can get it. So let's say consider instead of using that value, this scenario context, right? I will be able to use it like this, okay? And I will remove this, right? And if you run it, you will be able to see the data are coming there. Let's run it once and see that. Uh, we will build it here, and once it's built, we will go to the text explorer, right? And we will run the same test case in debug mode. Okay, and if you run it here, you will be able to see that value is coming here, right? So you will be able to you are able to see these values are coming there. So this is one way of storing this. Now the second way is, let's say consider you have your own object, right? Let's say consider I have a collection and I want to store it. In that case, there is other way also you can use it. What we can do it here, let's say I'm going to store here this dot underscore scenario context dot dot add, right? Add, and you can define a key. Let's say key is let's say put a key as a key for time being, okay? And then value, I can define a list, right? So for example, I can pass my own object. So let's say here I will variable uh, test list. I'm just giving test list, and then I'm going to define a new string list, right? And then let's add few values here, right? So few values here dot add, like I'm just adding first value, first value, and then similar way we will add couple of more values here. There's a second value, right? And then I will put that list here, right? So that I can completely store that user defined collection. So I'm having this collection here now. Now, if you want to get it that, how to get it? Let's say consider if you want to get it here, I will just delete this variable stored list. Let's say any name you can give it. Let's say I give stored list, right? And then I will put it like this. And this here you can define get, right? So get, right? Get. And what you want to get it, whatever the type you have stored it. In our case, what we have stored it is a list string. So I will put that type there as a list string, right? So I get it. So now what I will do, if I run it, I can get that complex object here. So let me build this and try to see that. So I will go view solution explorer and build it once again. Build successfully, and then I will go test text explorer, and I will debug this test case for time being. Let's say I debug it, and it's running now. Okay, so if I go to the next, let's say continue. And if you see here, right, I'm able to get all the values whatever I store. So in this way, most of the cases you will not have a atomic value, right, string or integer. Most of the time, what you have basically, you have a collection or user defined collection or huge list. So in that case, you can use this way. This is how you can do that. So you can have your collection and use that injected context that add and key and value pair, and similar way you can use get here, right? I will add this all source code to GitHub repo, and I will link the GitHub link URL there so you can refer it. I hope it helped you to understand about the data and the state management technique into the SpecFlow. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button.